so many of the lessons that I share are about esoteric, intricate interpretations about one thing or another in Torah. And this is just about challah. It's so basic, it's so foundational. I'm excited. This parsha is where we are instructed to make challah. Isn't that amazing? So, Judaism is so intricate and so involved, and there's also the simple, almost trivial items that we all take for granted. And challah is one of them. Who hasn't had challah on Shabbat? Who isn't? How many of us don't love challah? It's almost like our visceral Judaism has to do with challah. So again, we're going to consult here with the Slonimer, with Netivot Shalom. It instructs us in some foundational principle in spirituality. And here's how challah does that. So in the words of the great Slonimer, Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe le'emor, and that's God spoke to Moses saying, he's just quoting the verse in the Torah. In fact, I have it right here. Let me read it right from the source, from the Chumash. Daber el bnei Israel ve'amarta elehem. Speak to the people of Israel and say to them, Bevo'achem el haaretz asher ani mevi etchem shama. When you come to the land to which I am taking you, ve'aya be'ochlechem milechem haaretz, and when you eat from the bread of the earth. When you eat from the bread of the earth, when you will, in other words, when you will sow your own fields. Remember that now they're wandering in the desert, so they don't have the benefit of agriculture. But when they will arrive at the land of Canaan, or what becomes later the land of Israel, they will become farmers and they will grow their own wheat and barley and then bake their own bread. Tarimu turuma la'Adonai. You will lift a gift, an offering to God. Reshit arisotechem Halah tarimu. There's the word challah, Halah tarimu. The beginning of your arisotechem. I'm going to share Ari Kaplan's commentary on the language, because the language is ambiguous. The word I'm trying to translate in an interpretive way that will be conducive to this discussion is arisotechem. In fact, the word arisa in modern Hebrew, or in Hebrew in general, means bed. And the Slonimer will relate to that. What does bed have to do with challah? We'll see in a moment. Challah in Hebrew, this offering must be separated from an omer of dough, which is a portion of dough. Okay, so from the beginning of your arisotechem, challah tarimu. And challah here means you will take away a portion of the dough, and you will give that, tarimu turuma ketrumat goren ken tarimuta. You will give that as a offering to God. Just like when you collect the grain, you give an offering, 10% of the grain is given to the temple. In other words, what the Torah here is instructing us to do is not only give 10% of the grain and the other produce of the field, but also when you bake the bread, you will cut a piece from the dough, and that piece is going to be given as an offering to God. And it continues, Mereshit arisotechem titnu le'Adonai truma ledorotechem. From the first of your arisot, and I would imagine that here arisot techem means the actually dough, the mixture of the flour and water and whatever the mixture is. Remember that it also means bed, and a mixture is also in Hebrew isotechem. So there's a play on words here that I would have to study further, but for our purposes, it's just enough to know that arisotechem is the dough, and the challah is the piece that's broken off from the head of the dough and offered to as an offering to God. In our days, since there are no more sacrificial offerings, when a baker bakes challah, she or he will take a pinch from the dough, from the blob of dough, and burn it. ויש לומר על דרך העבודה בהקדם מה שכתב הרב הקדוש המגיד מקוזניץ', and here he's pointing to a teaching of the Maggid of Koznitz, בעבודת ישראל לבאר פרשה זו. And the Maggid says the following, בבואכם אל הארץ, היינו בבואכם לעסוק בעניינים הארציים. When the verse says, when you come to the land, and Aretz could be either land or earth. So typically we think when you come to the land, the promised land, but here he's saying don't read it as land, read it as earth. And he's saying that hints when you busy yourself, engage with earthly matters. For instance, like eating and drinking. תדעו אשר אני מביא אתכם שמה. Know that I, God, I am the one who brought you to this engagement. פירוש, שמה שיש לאדם תאווה לעניינים גשמיים, אין זה מהחלק הגשמי שבו. Meaning that when a person is drawn, has a desire to engage with earthly matters, עניינים גשמיים, that desire does not come from a person's earthly existence. אלא מהחלק הרוחני, it comes from a person's spirit. It's interesting. It's counterintuitive. Usually we think that a desire, a lust, for food, for sex, for stuff, for drink, whether alcoholic or not, comes from the body, right? It's this is more of a Christian actually take on it. The body is sinful, etc. And it's my body wants to engage with physicality, whereas my spirit, this is a split of body and spirit that is very common in the Western world and comes from Greek philosophy, later adopted by by Roman philosophy, and later adopted by Christianity. So there's this dualism, this split between body and spirit. And you would think that the spirit is all pure and is kind of separated from there. And whenever we have desire, lusts, cravings, that comes from our body. But he's saying, no, it comes from your spirit. Why? Asher ani מביא אתכם שמה. So here he's saying it's hinted in the verse, when the verse says, when you come to the land that I bring you to. And he's suggesting we read the verse in a whole different way. When you engage with earthly matters, know that I brought you to it. So the God, the divinity in you, is guiding you towards craving, lustfulness, desire, etc. הקדוש ברוך הוא מכניס לכם משיכה לעניינים אלו, כדי שתעלו את ניצוצות הקדושה הטמונים בהם. The Holy One is implanting this draw, this pull to these attractions, earthly attractions, in order for you to raise the holy sparks that's hidden in it. And that's Kabbalah 101, Lurianic Kabbalah. Everything has sparks of holiness, and as conscious human beings, it is our job and our capacity, our unique capacity, to release those sparks and send them back to their divine source, which is part of what the term Tikkun Ha'olam in Kabbalah is referring to, that we're here to repair. Originally, when the shattering of the vessels, when the original creation shattered and good and bad mixed in together, that means that in all material there is some divine spark hidden in it. That is after the shattering, and it's our job to repair the world, to bring it back to sort through and bring matter back to matter, earthly substance goes back to earthly substance, and the divine sparks are released back to the divine. And that sorting is our job. This is the spiritual practice and goal according to Kabbalah. And how is this done? שעל ידי שאדם אוכל ושותה בקדושה, הרי הוא מעלה את ניצוצות הקדושה הנמצאים בכל ענייני העולם הזה. So when a person eats and drinks in a sacred manner, like on Shabbat, when we say the blessings and when we eat in a contemplative, aware way, and this is again an intersection with Buddhist teachings about mindfulness. So to use that language, when we eat mindfully or drink mindfully, we're fulfilling this human tasks of releasing the sacred sparks back to their source and divinity. וכמו שפירש הבעל שם טוב, זיכרונו יאיר עלינו, and as the Baal Shem Tov has commented, and this is beautiful, when you read Hasidic text, to hear a quote of teaching of the Baal Shem Tov, who was really the great master and source of inspiration, who lived in the 18th century, but his teachings are still reverberating. So here's the teaching of the Holy Baal Shem Tov. His interpretation of a quote from the Psalms, Psalm 107, "Re'evim gam tzme'im nafsham bahem tit'atef." So that is the quote, which means when those who are hungry and those whose souls are hungry and thirsty, you, God, will envelop in them. So this is something about the relationship between a spiritual seeker and a spiritual worker and the Holy One. So, when a person is hungry, spiritually hungry and spiritually thirsty, so they provide, they envelop God in a way that brings some wholeness, to the divine architecture, as it were. It's just beautiful, beautiful poetics. And the Baal Shem Tov, his commentary on this verse is, "Ze she'adam ra'ev o tzameh noveh michamat shenafsham bahem titatef." When a person is hungry or thirsty, it extends from the fact that they are wrapped up in their own spirit, in their own soul. שבמאכל או במשקה תמונה nefesh, because in every item of food and every drink, there is consciousness, there is nefesh, there is a spirit. Every inanimate item, according to Kabbalah and according to the Baal Shem Tov here, has its own soul level, its own soul substance, which is the sacred spark. And again, it is our task to elevate that spark. And from here comes our lust. So this is, again, a recap. It's a summary of the same teaching, just in the words of the Holy Baal Shem Tov, which is exciting to actually engage with. So we're being exposed here to an esoteric, a mystical understanding of the deeper, as it were, the layer, the subparticle, the submaterial layers of reality, in which, when we engage spiritually with the world, these are the layers that we engage with. And there's something about our intentionality, our prayer, our consciousness as we're engaging with the material world, especially, and this is most common with eating and drinking. And this is the practice, this is the deeper purpose and dynamics of the practice of saying brachot, saying a blessing before and after eating. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Shehakol Nihiyeh Bidvaro. We offer thanks to you, Eternal One, Cosmic Power, that all is created in your utterance. And with that I acknowledge that there's some vibrational level substance in this water that I now intentionally release to its source, and with that bring some kind of healing, some kind of progress towards a world that in which clarity and spiritual hygiene is greater and greater, obviously, therefore less and less suffering. Amen. It's not often that I get to both teach and practice at the same time. So this is a wonderful opportunity to do both lecture and lab, as of laboratory. And thank you for being a witness and a partner in this process. So let's take this a level deeper. The Slonomer, I'm going to skip a few paragraphs here and go right to the essence of the teaching. But just to recap, what I'm skipping is he's going to talk about what does it mean, what does earthly matters actually mean in the context of this verse. And he will say that it's the most significant earthly matters that as humans we engage with and therefore bring a spiritual rectification to, a healing, right? The tikkun haolam is eating and sex. And the way he anchors that in the text is that, the eating is obviously obvious, but the word arisotechem, which I was a little, in the beginning, a little ambiguous about the translation, so it has several meanings, and here in this context it means the dough, the mixture, after it's kneaded, right, of the water and the flour and the salt and yeast, or whatever's mixed in there. But the word arisotechem also could mean, arisa means bed, eres means bed. So it's the matters of bed practice, right? Or pillow practice, as it were. And those are the two areas in which, with intentionality and with consciousness and with with a certain attitude, we can elevate. And the third thing that he's referring to is, why does it say Reshit Arisotechem, the beginning of your dough? And it actually is mentioned twice. Reshit Arisotechem, Halah Tarimu Truma, Mereshit Arisotechem Titnu L'Adonai Truma L'Dorotechem. So it says it twice from Reshit, from the beginning. He says, what is it about beginning that's so significant here? The way it's, it's in its simple, kind of more literalistic form, it's understood to be an instruction to take from the head. Reshit, the beginning, is also the head, like Bereshit is the beginning or the head of time, right? Genesis, and Rosh Hashanah comes from Reshit, is the head of the year, etc. So if you lay out your challah, you make your dough, and you make the blob of dough that's going to go into the oven. So you take it from the head. What's the head? What's the toes? I don't know. But you don't take it from the middle. You don't take it from the belly. You take it from the edge of the. If it's an elongated piece, you take it from the head, as it were, pick where the head is. So that's a literal interpretation, but he asks, what is it about the head of, or the beginning of, this bed or dough that is so important? And let's go back to his words. וזאת מלמדת לנו התורה בפרשה זו. And here the Torah teaches, specifically in this paragraph, בבואכם אל הארץ, היינו כשתבואו לעסוק בארציות. He is actually recapping his original teaching. When you come to the land, actually means when you come to engage with earthly matters. תרימו את כל ענייני הארציות תרומה לאדוני. You should lift all earthly matters as an offering to the divine. שמכל הנאה שיהודי נהנה מהעולם הזה, ירים תרומה להשם יתברך. This teaches us that from anything that we derive pleasure in this world, a person, a Jew, should lift it to the divine. Don't be selfish. Don't just have pleasure for your own sake. Share some of that pleasure with the higher realms. What a beautiful thought. Connect, extend it, broadcast it, not horizontally but vertically. Rather, it's good to do enjoyment, sometimes socially, but also private. Especially sexuality is a private a pleasure most of the time, and eating still often is private too, or in a small group. Obviously, there are the occasions where it's done socially. So the idea of sharing, extending, of not being selfish with the pleasure is not necessarily about with other people. There's a claim to be made about sharing our pleasures and our bounty with others, but here specifically is, don't be selfish as of wrapped up in your own existence. Remember that there's a bigger picture. Remember that anything that you do in this life, in this world, or in ordinary consciousness, has ripple effects that go through the dimensions, the spiritual dimensions. So remember, bring consciousness to that and offer your pleasure up. Share it with the higher realms. וכמאמר הרב הקדוש, רב מנדל ויטבסק, זיכרונו יאיר עלינו, and according to the words of Rabbi Mendel of Vitebsk, שכל הנאה גשמית גם אם היא לתאוות עצמו ואינו מרימה להשם יתברך, הרי זה נרגן מפריד אלוף שמרחיקו מהשם יתברך. And he says, Rabbi Mendel of Vitebsk says that it's not only that you should, like, it's virtuous to, share your pleasures with the higher realms, with divinity, but if you do not do that, you are disconnecting yourself from divinity. You're despiritualizing the experience that you're in. דאף שאין בזה שום צד איסור, אבל הוא מתרחק על ידי זה מהשם יתברך. And he said, even if it's not technically forbidden, in other words, even if you can grab something and eat it and enjoy it, it's fine, or engage sexually and enjoy it, it's fine. It's technically approved of and condoned and encouraged in Jewish tradition. But nevertheless, if you don't take that as an opportunity to connect vertically, so one is then distancing oneself from the spiritual journey. ועניין זה הוא יסוד גדול שנזכר הרבה פעמים בתורה, תרומת ראשית בכל ענייני העולם הזה. He says that giving of the first is a foundation in the Torah, in Jewish spirituality, that's mentioned many times. And by the way, just to bring a few examples, so on Shavuot, we're bringing the first fruits to the temple. When the firstborn, Pidyon Bechol, the firstborn is dedicated to, is supposed to be dedicated also to God. The firstborn among the animals should be dedicated, the firstborn among humans. But there's something about the first day of the new year is dedicated, is a special day, Rosh Hashanah. There's something about anything that's a first should be dedicated, should be elevated and offered and given as an offering. Why? ללמד שיהודי צריך להרים כל הנאות עולם הזה להשם יתברך. That a person should elevate all pleasures, all earthly pleasures to the divine, but and this is the beauty of Chassidut and Kabbalah, of the Hasidic sort of human-centered spirituality of the Baal Shem Tov and the further Rebbes. ולכל הפחות מראשית, מקצת ראשית. And he says, if you can't elevate every pleasure, at the least elevate a little bit from its beginning. Just a little bit goes a long way, say the Hasidim. So imagine, if I was an adept in tantric sex, right? This is an Eastern practice that uses sexual impulses to develop a kind of a mindfulness and awareness and a self-control that takes sex to a spiritual level. So if I'm not an adept and I cannot be in sexual encounter that is in divine consciousness from beginning to end, at least in the beginning, have some kind of dedication, some kind of bracha, some kind of conscious conversation, with my partner. Look, we have this attraction between us. We, it's rising. And how about we dedicate this? How about we close our eyes for a moment and just send this impulse up to the heavens before we get lost in our ecstasy? How about if I'm sitting down for a sumptuous meal on Friday night, let me say a bracha, let me say a kiddush over the wine and a bracha over the bread, and close my eyes for a moment and breathe into the delight that's about to come. You know, the flavors, the gourmet meal that we have prepared for in honor of Shabbat. Or if it's not Shabbat, in honor of the holiday, in honor of a birthday, in honor of a romantic dinner, in honor of graduation, whatever it is. How about we do a little bit of a dedication of this? We're about to engage our senses. Let me close my eyes and elevate that, offer that up to the divine. What a beautiful, beautiful practice. And so on and so forth. And here we cycle back to Challah. So what makes Challah holy is not how delicious it is, how much egg is in it, how much raisins and nuts and, whatever creative, amazing, flavorful ingredients go into the baking of the challah. It's not the braiding. It's not the beautiful, shiny coating, that a challah is usually given. It comes out shiny because there's sort of like an egg beat mixture that's brushed on top of it. That's not what makes the challah. It's the sacred bread of Shabbat. What makes it sacred is that the baker took a piece from the head and said, this challah is not fully for human pleasure alone, but I'm going to take a piece and I'm going to burn it up so the smoke of the challah can go up like incense to the heavens, and may God have a taste before we sit down for our meal. Imagine that level of mindfulness, that level of consciousness. It's a beautiful teaching of Challah. I hope that your and my Shabbat is going to never be the same, that Friday night or Shabbat lunch, when we take a bite of the Challah, that we remember this Challah has been dedicated, and thus we have been dedicated by extension, and we can further dedicate that with our intentionality, with our humanity, with our spirituality. May we so be blessed. I'm Rabbi Reuben Modik with Makom Halev Community and Hebrew Learning Circles. Thank you for sharing this beautiful teaching. I'll tell you what particularly tickles me about sharing this teaching is that so many of the lessons that I share are about esoteric, intricate interpretations about one thing or another in Torah, and this is just about challah. It's so basic, it's so foundational, and even there, even with the most common and almost trivial practice or tradition, there too we can touch the heart of matters. So I'm really psyched, and I'm so appreciative of sharing this teaching with you. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'd love to have you a regular here with our cyber yeshiva. We teach almost every day. If you're in the New York area, definitely drop a note, stop by. Otherwise, would love to hear your comments. What is your experience with challah? Do you dedicate anything or yourself to elevating to, how do you move forward on your spiritual path, and particularly on your Jewish spiritual path if you're Jewish? Let's keep the conversation going. Write a comment below. I'd love to interact. And I think with that, we'll say shalom.